Hi everyone, today we are going to be exploring our lab Le Chatelier's principle, which is what we're going to be focusing on this week. Le Chatelier's principle is our first lab that goes into our equilibrium chapters. So if you haven't gotten to the very beginning of your equilibrium chapters in your lecture, make sure that you're kind of catching up there before jumping into this lab. We also have our intro section of our lab experiment here that's available on e-learning that you're more than welcome to read through. That kind of gives you a background of the equilibrium aspects of this lab before we jump into Le Chatelier's principle. So when we're at equilibrium, we call this a dynamic equilibrium. We have the forward reaction happening at the same rate as the reverse reaction. This is different than what we've been talking about since earlier in the semester and even back in Gen Chem 1, because we've only been looking at unidirectional reactions, where I go from reactants to products and I stop. But what's more likely to happen in a lot more cases than what we see in chemistry is we're actually at an equilibrium, where I have the forward reaction happening, but I can also have the reverse reaction happening as well. So it's a reversible reaction or a dynamic reaction, meaning that they're happening at the same time. And when we're at equilibrium, not only are the reactions happening at the same time, they're happening at the same rate. So as fast as I'm using up reactants, I'm using it to make products, I'm using up products to make those same reactants back. It's cyclic, okay? I go like this, they're happening at the same time. So when we're dealing with equilibrium, we're going to be referring to our equilibrium constant. That's our K sub C. That's when we're at equilibrium. The other term that we're going to see is going to be Q sub C, which is our reaction quotient, which is when we're away from equilibrium. Well, Le Chatelier's principle is going to tell us what the reaction or the system is going to do when I stress it enough to move it away from equilibrium. We want to be at equilibrium. We want to be at an equilibrium where everything's happening at the same time. But there can be times where we stress that system and we change these different aspects of that reaction, and Le Chatelier's principle tells us what's going to happen. So Le Chatelier's principle states that when a system at equilibrium is stressed, it will respond in a way to alleviate that stress. So we're going to talk about the different types of stresses that we have, as well as how that's going to affect our equilibrium. Before we jump into that, I want to think about equilibrium as a balanced scale. So because these are happening at the same time and at the same rate, it almost is as if the reaction has stopped happening. Okay, but it's not that it stopped happening, it's just that they're happening at the same time, so it looks like nothing is changing. So that's going to be like a balanced scale. Okay, we're going to think about reactants and products as weights on a weighted scale and stuff like that. So you're going to see me going like this. Okay, we're going to be moving this way and that way in order to see the differences in that scale. So when we're at equilibrium, we're at this balanced scale. When a stress, okay, when the system is stressed, we're going to have that scale tipped in one direction or the other. And the goal of Le Chatelier's principle is that when I tip that scale, I want to get back. What am I going to do? What am I, as the system of that reaction, going to do to get back to that equilibrium, back to that balanced scale? Okay, so we have to define what a stress is. We're going to look at 3 different types of stresses in this lecture, and then in the lab itself, we're going to explore 2 of those 3. So the first stress and the most common stress is going to be a concentration stress. This is going to be the addition or removal of a reactant or a product, because the addition or removal of a reactant or product is going to change the concentration. So if we remove a product, it changes that concentration. Maybe I cut that concentration down by half, or maybe I add product and I double its concentration. That's what we mean by addition or removal of a product or reactant. We're changing its concentration from where it's at equilibrium. We can think, if I'm at equilibrium, my concentrations are kind of like 1. They're not always 1, but let's, for the ease of math in our head, say that they're 1. Let's say I take reactant A and I say I'm going to double its concentration. Well, I've added more of that reactant because I doubled its concentration. That's what we mean. You're going to see those terms kind of used interchangeably: addition, doubled, halved, removal, things like that. Okay, so they all mean the same thing. So when we add a reactant or product, the system is going to respond by shifting in the opposite direction in order to get back to equilibrium. So I want to come back to these scales. Here I have the addition of a reactant. So I'm at equilibrium, okay, I'm at my balanced scale over here. And what I've done is I've added reactant. Think of this like weight. If I add reactant, I increase its concentration, I'm increasing its weight. So that's gonna make the reactant side of that scale a lot heavier, okay? So I'm gonna tilt like this. We wanna get back to this. So what the reaction has to do is it has to figure out, what do I need to do, what reaction, the forward reaction or the reverse reaction do I need to perform in order to alleviate that stress, alleviate the addition of that reactant in order to get back to my flat balanced scale. So if I add reactant, I'm gonna force the reaction in the opposite direction. So the opposite of the reactant is the product. So I'm going to push this reaction towards the product side, okay? So think of it this way, this side's heavier. I have to make it lighter. So how do I make that side lighter? I'm going to use up some of it, okay? So I'm gonna start reacting my reactants together. A plus B is gonna start creating more C plus D. So what that's going to do is it's going to force the reaction towards the product side, making the product side a little bit heavier than it was, and back to that equilibrium. So the addition of a reactant forces the reaction towards the product side. So it's the opposite of what we've done. The same can be said if I add product. So here I've added more D. So I've made this side heavier. If I add product, I'm going to force the reaction towards the reactant. So they go in the reverse. So let's write that down. If I add reactant, it's gonna force this to the product side. Okay, I need to start making more product to use up that newly added reactant. In the opposite way, if I add more product, I'm going to force the reaction towards the reactant side. It's going to shift towards the reactant side in order to use up that newly added product. Okay, so that's the addition. The removal is a little bit different. If I remove a reactant or a product, it will force the reaction to the side where that reactant or product was removed from. This is more commonly referred to as a void stress. It's almost like creating a hole, okay? And what we want to do is we want to fill that void back up, because if I remove a product or reactant completely, it can't be there to do its opposite reaction, okay? And so here I have the example, A plus nothing. I got rid of all reactant B, okay? It's gone, okay? I removed it, okay? I used it up, I got rid of it, somehow it is removed. So I can no longer go in the forward direction. So the only thing that I can do is go in the reverse direction. So I'm going to use up my products and I'm going to make reactant. Because I have this hole there, I have a void, and I want to fill in that void in order to get back to my equilibrium and get back to that forward reaction going in the opposite way. I need to have B in order to react it with A, okay? Again, we can think of it like a scale. If I remove B from my reactant side, it makes this side a lot lighter, right? If I remove something, it's making that weight lighter. So product side is going to be heavier. If I want to get back to my balance, I need to start using up my products. Okay, this side's heavier. I need to start using them up to get balanced again, okay? The same is going to be said for if I remove a product, I'm creating a void in my product side, so I need to use up my reactants, and I need to fill in that void to create it again. So it moves towards the product. So if I remove reactant, the reaction is going to shift towards the reactants in order to fill the void. If I remove product, the reaction is going to move towards the products in order to fill that void. So it's this one and the same. If I remove reactant, I go in the reactant direction. If I move product, I go in the product direction, okay? So that is one of our stresses, our concentration stress, and that's gonna be our addition or removal of a reactant or product. Either we're adding it to force the reaction in the opposite direction, or we're removing it in order to fill the void. The last two stresses that we're going to talk about are going to be temperature and pressure. So temperature has to do with the increase or the decrease of the temperature that the system is at when it's at equilibrium. And when we're talking about the change in temperature, we have to look at the enthalpy of that specific reaction. So how temperature affects one reaction could be different for a different reaction because different reactions have different enthalpy values. So we need to know the enthalpy value, or at least its sign, to know how temperature, whether we're increasing it or decreasing it, will affect the equilibrium shift. So let's first look at an enthalpy that is less than 0 that we refer to as an exothermic reaction. So exothermic means we're giving off heat. So in that case, we can think of heat as a product. If it's giving off heat, like an explosion, exothermic, give off heat, okay, explosions give off heat. Heat is a product. I make heat from that reaction, okay? So I've added to our reaction A plus B is in equilibrium with C plus D plus heat. Heat is a product. When it's exothermic, we can think of heat as a product, and if we can think of heat as a product, we can think of our concentration stress. If I increase the temperature, I'm adding heat, so I'm adding a product. So increasing the temperature is like adding a product, and if I add product, I'm making this side heavier, okay, this side is heavier, so I'm gonna go in the reverse direction, okay, so I go reverse, so I'm gonna go towards my reactants in order to alleviate that stress. So I'm adding heat, I'm adding a product, so in order to alleviate that, I need to move towards my reactants, I'm moving in the reverse direction. I'm going this way, it's like adding a product. If I decrease the temperature, it's like I'm removing that product, okay? I'm creating that void stress. So again, the reactant side is gonna technically be heavier because I removed some of that product. If I remove product, I'm creating a void. What I want to do to reestablish my equilibrium, I want to fill in that void. So I'm going to move in the forward direction towards my products, towards where that heat was lost to make up that lost heat, okay? So that's if it's exothermic. Heat is going to be a product. So we can think of it as increasing temperature is like adding a product, or decreasing temperature is like removing that product, and then we can refer to our concentration stress and how we alleviate those in the same way. If the reaction is exothermic, it's going to have an enthalpy that's greater than 0, okay? So heat is going to act as a reactant. I need heat. I need to use heat from my surroundings in order to react with my other chemical reactants and create my product. So increasing the temperature is going to be like adding a reactant. If I add reactant, if I add heat, I'm adding more to this side is becoming heavier, so I need to go in the forward direction to alleviate that stress. I need to use my reactants, I need to use up that excess heat that I just added, and I need to make my products, okay? Decreasing the temperature is like removing a reactant. So I'm creating a void on this side. This side's getting lighter, so my product side is heavier. So what do I need to do? I need to fill in that void. I need to make up for that lost heat. If I removed heat, I don't have as much heat to react with my other reactants, so I can't go in the forward direction. So I need to move from products to reactants in the reverse direction. This side's heavier. I need to go from products to reactants in order to balance back out and get back to equilibrium, okay? So that's how temperature is going to affect our equilibrium and cause different shifts based on Le Chatelier's principle. I also do want to point out one other thing, and that's temperature is our only variable that we have, any one of our stresses, that can change our Kc value, our equilibrium constant. An equilibrium constant is just that, it's a constant for a specific reaction at a specific temperature. Okay, it doesn't matter what the concentrations are, it doesn't matter what the pressure is, but it does matter what the temperature is. All of the equilibrium constants that we're gonna see, whether that's in this chapter or in future chapters, are for 298 Kelvin. But the moment you change that temperature, you're gonna change that equilibrium constant. Okay, so temperature is the only variable that can change the Kc value. We're not going to be looking at that specifically quantitatively in this lab or anything like that, but it is important to note that temperature is the only variable that will do that, and you'll definitely explore equations and stuff like that more in your lecture course on how that variable can change. Our last stress that we're going to talk about here is going to be pressure. And that's going to either be increasing or decreasing the overall pressure that the system is at when it's at equilibrium. That is going to be our stress. By increasing or decreasing the pressure, we're offsetting that equilibrium in one way or the other, okay? Now, when it comes to pressure, it's going to depend on the number of moles, specifically the moles of gas. Okay, pressure only has to do with gases, as we learned that back in Gen Chem 1, ideal gas law and things like that. I need to have a gas in order to have moles of gas, in order to have an ideal gas constant and things like that. So if there's no gases, then the pressure is not going to affect anything. Okay, so this is specifically going to be dependent on the number of moles of gas on either side of the reaction. So I've amended our A plus B in equilibrium with C plus D, mainly so I can show this off a little bit more. I now have A plus 2B in equilibrium with C plus D because we need to be able to count the number of moles of gas. Let's assume that in this example, A, B, C, and D are all gases. So if we look at the number of moles of gases here, I have 1 mole of gas of A, 2 moles of gas of B, so I have 3 moles of gas on my reactant side. And on my product side, I have 1 mole of gas C and 1 mole of gas D, so that sums to 2 moles of gas on my product side. Okay, so we do need to be able to count the number of moles of gas on either side of our arrow there. So when it comes to increasing and decreasing the pressure, we need to take into account the number of moles on either side of those arrows. So in the case that we increase the pressure, the reaction will shift to the side of the reaction with fewer gas molecules. Okay, the lesser gas molecules. Because if I'm increasing the pressure, think of it like a piston, I'm pushing it down, I'm decreasing that volume. And there's a lot less room for the molecules to take up, so they want to be in the smallest way possible. Okay, they want to be in the lesser way possible, the smaller amount of moles possible. So in our example here, if we were to increase the pressure and we want to move to the side of the reaction with fewer gas molecules, we would be shifting to our product side. Now, just like temperature, this will be dependent on the reaction that you are looking at. Okay, so the rule here is it'll shift to the side with the fewer molecules. So when you're given a problem where you have to look for the change in pressure, you need to count the number of moles. And make your decision based off of that. So for this reaction, for this example that I'm giving here, if we were to increase the pressure, we would be shifting towards the product side. For the decrease of pressure, it's going to be the opposite. So the reaction will shift to the side of the reaction with the greater number of gas molecules. So I'm increasing that volume. There's more space for them to take up. So they want to be in the largest way possible. They want to be in the most number of molecules that they can be to take up more space. So for this reaction, for the example that we have here, we're going to move to the side with the greater number of gas molecules, which would be the reactant. Okay, and again, that's going to depend on the specific reactions that you are looking at. For our lab this week, we are only going to be looking at 2 of these 3 stressors. We are going to be looking at aqueous solutions, so we are not going to be looking at pressures. We're not going to be changing any of these because the reactions that we are looking at don't have any gaseous reactants or products. So changes in that pressure will not change our equilibrium because there is no gaseous form. So we are going to be looking at the addition and the removal of the products and reactants for a concentration stress, and we're going to be increasing and decreasing the temperature of our reactions for a temperature stress. So let's move on to the lab portion. Make sure you complete your pre-lab quiz before you go into that lab experiment, and then join me in the lab experiment where we're going to go and I'll show you the different stressors that we're going to be adding.